Hello, welcome back to my channel. And welcome to the second annual Chandler Ranks Her KU Romances for a Given Year video. I'm very excited to be doing this for you. I actually feel like it was pretty validating getting this tier ranking list together, primarily because I really felt like I hadn't read very many KU romances this year. I have been prioritizing doing at least one KU specific video a month because indie romances are something that I personally like reading, and also I know these are videos that y'all enjoy, but for some reason I still felt like I just really haven't read that much KU. Last year I read 48 Kindle Unlimited romances. This year I read 66, so I was very much off in my estimation on how many I had read, which means this one's probably going to be a bit longer than last year's, but that's fine, because I'm excited to talk to you about all the KU romances I read, let you know what's good and what's not. Hopefully this is a good wrap up end of the year kind of video. Also, I realized as I was sitting down to do this, I was thinking to myself I definitely have more KU videos planned for the year. Maybe I should wait to do this video. And then I realized, no, I have actually finished all of my KU content for the year. If you want to see any other KU content from me for the rest of the year, I will shamelessly plug my Patreon because I have just implemented a couple of new benefits on each of the tiers. I also implemented a new tier that I believe is about $3, and on that tier you can get an exclusive, usually KU reading vlog from me, plus a once a month hangout with Hayden and I, and then the benefits just go up obviously from there. So if you're gonna be craving and missing that KU content from me, you want to treat yourself for the end of the year, just shamelessly plugging that Patreon again. Anyway, let's get into the tier ranking and I'll let you know again what's good, what's not. Let's get into it. So as you can see, I have quite a few books here. Like last year, I ended up doing my own little tier ranking system. I have this on PowerPoint. I'm using PowerPoint today instead of the online tier makers, mostly because I feel like those don't lend themselves well to the book cover shapes. So we're doing something a little different today. First up, we have Good Gone Bad by Miss Gianna Darling. Okay, so I endeavored to finish this series this year. I have not quite gotten there. I have one book left in the books that have already come out. Good Gone Bad is one that I actually was rereading so that I could continue on with the series. This one is one of the better books. I feel like the first three books in the series really are pretty good. I think upon reread, this book was not my absolute favorite from the series, but I do think Gianna Darling does great with dirty talk and age gaps, and you have both of those things present in this book. So I think, I don't know, I'm waffling between A and B tier here. I think I'm gonna put it at B tier just because I know we have other fantastic romances to talk about. Next up, we have Play With Me. This is one of my most recently read Kindle Unlimited romances, and this one is about a hockey player and his relationship with one of his best friend's sisters. Love this. I thought this was deeply emotional. I definitely enjoyed this one more than Good Gone Bad. It is overly long at over 500 pages, but I think if you're looking for kind of a slice of life romance with a hero who is head over heels for the heroine, you might want to pick this one up. Honestly, I felt that way about both of the books in the series. Too long, but ultimately enjoyable. Next up, let's do the other side, The Spy by Sophie, Lark. I'm sort of at a loss because I don't remember this one as well as I feel like I should. I'll be honest with you, I only really enjoyed one of the books in this series. I loved The Bully. I thought it was a fantastic romance. If you're looking for something that gives you Draco Hermione vibes, you're definitely gonna get that. The Spy, however, it is about a character that you grow to kind of enjoy as you read the series. However, I just felt like the romance was ultimately a little bit unsatisfying. This is just gonna have to be C tier for me. It wasn't bad. I think I ended up giving this one 3 stars maybe. So on a technical level, I feel like it's the same as Good Gone Bad, but I just liked Good Gone Bad that much more. So we're gonna leave it there. Oh my god, I don't even know where to begin with Wicked Night. I listened to this one on audio, and I will tell you, if you like British accents, you will love this audiobook. I feel like if you have some Audible credits and you were just looking for something really smutty, really over the top and ridiculous, you want a new adult romance, I think it's set at a boarding school or something with a hero who is kind of unhinged, I think you might enjoy this. If you don't like a bully romance, do not pick this book up. I don't know, this book did something for me and to me. I really liked it. I think I'm gonna put this B tier. Was this quality literature? No. But was the audiobook listening experience a delight? Yes. Also it was. So I'm gonna leave it B tier, okay? The Never King. Oh my goodness. This is a Peter Pan retelling where Wendy is sort of a character with lineage, shall we say. Her descendants all go to Neverland, and one of them is going to eventually break this curse that is put on Peter Pan and the Lost Boys. We meet Pan, we meet the Lost Boys. I don't think we end up meeting Captain Hook in the first book, but if you want insane amounts of smut, really no plot whatsoever, you just like a good fantasy, I guess you could say, romance, look, listen, this is another one that I just feel like, was it good? No. Was it fun? Absolutely. We're going B tier. I know, it just feels blasphemous, and I feel like I'm looking at the Spy down here and it just feels kind of sad to leave her here, but I just got more enjoyment out of these two romances that are objectively not as good probably as the Spy, but moving on. Consider Me, which is the first book in that Becca Mac series, another hockey player romance. This one is equally as ridiculous as Play With Me. I don't think I really touched on how ridiculous the books books in the series are, don't forget, these books are ridiculous. Like, the humor and the dialogue is definitely there. The maturity of the characters doesn't necessarily match their ages, but I think if that's something you're willing to overlook and you like good banter and good emotion, I think you'll still like these. This one is a, I think, friends to lovers-ish story. The heroine doesn't really want anything to do with the hero at first because she's not really looking for a hockey player. She's like, no, I'm a very tame girl and I don't need that in my life. He doesn't obviously take no for an answer, but in like a sweet, not a creepy way. I'm gonna put this A tier as well. This was just a really solid romance. I liked both of these. All right, Quarterback Sneak by Miss Candy Steiner. Also, I'm gonna grab Blindside while I'm here. These were both really fantastic romances. I gave both of these books 4 stars. This is my third take trying to talk about Blindside because I think I'm getting it confused with every other sports romance I've read this year, which is kind of a shame because while this isn't the most original sports romance I've ever read, it was very solidly written. I did really feel the emotions between the characters. I think it is kind of a friends to lovers story, and she, I think, tutors him. I could be wrong here. All I really remember is that she is kind of inexperienced and she's super into romance, but I also saw like a lot of myself in our heroines. I loved this story. I think Candy Steiner really has a way with writing emotional stories that are not overwrought, not overly long, which I can really appreciate. I think if something like Play With Me and Consider Me are too long for you, I think maybe jumping into one of these Candy Steiner books would be great. Quarterback Sneak was also great. It was, I would say, a little bit more emotional because our heroine is dealing with a lot. She is grieving, and our hero also has loss in his life that he's dealing with. I would tread carefully for sure if you are someone who has had recent loss in your life, because it definitely kind of got to me personally, but they're both fantastic romances. These are easily A tier romances for me. I don't think I like one of them more than the other, but I'm pretty sure I gave both of these 4 stars. This is a toughie. Drowning Aaron is the second book in the series, with Waking Olivia being the first book. I think Waking Olivia got a lot of hype on YouTube maybe last year. I totally missed the hype. I feel like I'm always out of the loop. Waking Olivia was fantastic. Drowning Aaron, on the other hand, was interesting. It is a boyfriend's best friend romance. The heroine knew the boyfriend's best friend before him, I want to say. He has always been kind of rude to our heroine because I think he like saw her first, wanted her first kind of thing. And I love that trope. Like, that is definitely something that I enjoy, the boyfriend's best friend trope. I don't know. That's probably my favorite. Better than brother's best friend or whatever. I just feel like our heroine in this book was not as well fleshed out as heroines in some of Elizabeth O'Rourke's other books. I think she does such a good job with having heroines who are deeply flawed, who have a lot of like, not trauma in their life, but like things that make them feel real. But our heroine in this book, like, she hated her job. That was like the main thread of this story. I never feel like she got to find a new job or anything. Also, her family really fucking sucked in this book. Again, nothing really happened there. She never really got that like closure that I feel like she deserved. I know that might be a little nitpicky, but it definitely made this book less enjoyable for me. You know what? I think I'm going to be a little ruthless here. I'm gonna put this one at B tier. While it was a very solid romance, I think I still gave this book 4 stars. In hindsight, I probably should have given it 3 stars, and it definitely is nothing compared to Waking Olivia, which we're gonna talk about now. I think it might be my favorite romance of the year. This is about our heroine who is a cross-country runner. She has been transferred to a different school because she got kicked out of her last one for, I think, beating up a man. Well deserved. He definitely deserved it, we find out. I mean, I think it's kind of assumed, but definitely is the case. She goes through an emotional journey with her coach. It is an age gap romance, but our heroine, I think, is in her like early 20s and he is in his late 20s. It's not anything wild. Elizabeth O'Rourke doesn't do, you know, insane age gaps or anything really taboo. This story was just so fucking beautiful, though. I just can't put into words how much I loved the way this was written. I'm going to leave it at that. You need to pick this book up. This is an S tier book. I don't think anything's gonna top this. I'm not necessarily ranking these within the tiers, but I like that Waking Olivia is in that top spot because it just feels right to me. After the Fall. This is, I believe, the 4th book in the Fallen Men series by Jonna Darling. This is a motorcycle club romance series. I don't know if I said that when I talked about Good Gone Bad. This one just didn't totally work for me. It is the 2nd book about the same couple. Like, we had the 1st book in the series about this couple, and now the 4th book in the series is about the same couple. I just feel like what happened in this book was kind of silly. Conflict of the book is a little bit silly. Emotions felt a little bit contrived, and I just didn't want to revisit this couple. They were a little annoying in the 1st book. They were much more annoying in this 4th book, so I'm gonna have to put this in C tier. Like, it definitely is just not on the same level as Good Gone Bad to me. Yeah, we're just gonna leave it at that, okay? And now let's come over here. Ruthless Rival by LJ Shen. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't feel like this was anything remarkable. It was like if you put every LJ Shen book ever in a blender, and that's not necessarily bad if you like this author, but I just wanted more in the way of originality from the story. It is an enemies to lovers or rivals to lovers kind of story between our heroine and our hero. He is an attorney who is trying to put our heroine's father in prison for like sexual harassment, right? And our heroine is really upset at this because she had a horrible relationship, I believe, with her mother, but she had a really good relationship with her dad growing up, and she's like, I don't think my dad could have done this. Could have posed really interesting moral questions. It just never really went there. And I feel like the romance relied too heavily on a mistaken identity, hidden identity thing, and not in the way that I personally like. Y'all know that I have kind of mixed feelings and mixed experiences with hidden identity. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I hate it. This was more on the hate side, so I think I'm gonna put this in C tier. It was just kind of forgettable, honestly, and just like not my favorite. A book that was very much my favorite. A Deal with the Devil by Elizabeth O'Rourke. This is the first book in the Devil series. I think there's like 3 books. There's going to be a 4th. This book is about our hero who is a plastic surgeon, definitely a bit of a ladies' man, and kind of an unapologetic like substance abuser. I think he's a bit of an alcoholic and definitely like doesn't treat himself the way that he should. And his current personal assistant is going on a vacation, I believe. And so his personal assistant is like, hey, my best friend's gonna fill in for me for this time. And she ends up kind of falling for our hero. It is such a fun romance. I know that my description of the hero makes it sound like this is going to be something like deeply emotional and overwrought. It is definitely emotional. All of Elizabeth O'Rourke's books definitely have an emotional feel to them. They also have like just a touch of slow burn, not overly long like a Mariana Zapata book or anything, but definitely the kind of slow burn that I appreciate. I'm just finding in my old age that as much as I love a good smutty romance, I want the smut to come in 50% mark or later. I don't want them hooking up at the beginning of the book, and this one didn't have that. It also just had that like puzzle pieciness that is sort of in my mind like undefinable. Just means that the characters really are meant for each other and you could see how they could work long term. I loved this book. This is easily S tier. I mean, it's hard not to put all of Elizabeth O'Rourke's books here, but this one was really a standout for me. Next up, 5 Rounds by Nikki Castle. Sorry, had to get kind of close. There are so many Nikki authors on this tiered list. It was an MMA fighter romance, enemies to lovers, between our like MMA amateur heroine. I mean, she like has another job. She's not like the actual fighter. And, her relationship with her best friend, who she has to like live with for a week or 2. I just feel like this one was pretty forgettable. It was fine. It was very, very, very smutty if you like smut, but it didn't really feel like it had that emotional thread that I personally need in my romances for them to be like out of this world. So I'm gonna put this at C tier. It was fine, very forgettable. I probably won't think about it after this tier ranking video. Another book that I kind of wish I could forget, The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. Okay, really, really enjoyed Terms and Conditions, which is, let's see if I can find it. This is a billionaire trilogy, and I believe this is supposed to be kind of like modeled after Disney World. There are these 3 billionaire brothers who are promised head roles at Disney World after their grandfather passes away, but they have to fulfill certain requirements of the will. The Fine Print, we have our hero, and I don't remember exactly like what his title is or whatever. I just remember that I didn't really like the heroine in the story. She was so painfully immature, and I just feel like the story wasn't very original. It felt like the only interactions they had were at our heroine's desk. It was like, hero comes to heroine's desk, they have interaction, and then the next day they have the same interaction, and it just never felt like the story really went anywhere. I don't know, it just wasn't my favorite. I feel like, again, this is just like a C tier romance for me, which is interesting because when I look at Terms and Conditions, it's just so much better. I think I gave The Fine Print 3 stars, and I gave Terms and Conditions 5 stars. Like, similar premise, obviously, you've got this billionaire hero, but I liked the hero a little bit more in this book. He was definitely a little bit more gruff, and it's his relationship between him and his personal assistant who is pretending to be his fiance. So it's sort of a fake relationship, marriage of convenience thing. I just felt like the interactions here felt more original. There was definitely more to root for in the story. It kind of got sucked into the whole like Disney World sort of setting, which I didn't really in The Fine Print. So I'm gonna put this one in A tier. It was just really solid. Should I put this S tier? This is tough because I think I gave Terms and Conditions 5 stars. I'm gonna put it S tier. I'm feeling fucking generous today, okay? We're gonna put it here. On the Rocks by Candy Steiner. Okay, I do like Candy Steiner, but it doesn't mean that every book that I've read by her has been a total success. On the Rocks is a story about our hero who works at a whiskey distillery, I believe, and our heroine is a Richie Rich girl. She's quite young. I want to say she's like a sophomore in college, and she's actually engaged to a man who is going to be a senator. He's like 25. And the relationship kind of turns into this forbidden thing, obviously. Her fighting her feelings for this guy who she knows that she shouldn't be with because she is engaged to another man, but ultimately like following her heart because of course she should follow her dreams and like actually graduate college. Novel concept. It wasn't terrible again, but I just feel like this one is so forgettable. Definitely I wouldn't say on the same level as these books on B tier, so I'm gonna have to do another C tier. I feel like I'm being kind of mean this time around. I feel like I had more books ranked higher in the last tier ranking video, but you know what? I'm okay with it. That's just who I am. Okay, the first KU book that I read this year was Darling Venom. This book was written for TikTok. I think that's something that my friend Crystal said really well in her vlog or video about this book. book. It's about our heroine who enters into a pseudo-romantic relationship with this guy in high school. He is not long for this world, shall we say. He unalives himself because he doesn't want to be here. He has kind of a tough upbringing. He doesn't have a good relationship with his father, who is a world-renowned novelist, and he does not have a good relationship with his older brother, who is a little bit controlling. So he passes away, and our heroine is dealing with that grief for quite a while. A few years later, she comes into contact with our initial hero's older brother. So it's kind of like a dual love story in a way. I don't think that's spoiling anything. I'm pretty sure that's in the synopsis, or it should be, to be honest, because I think a lot of people get invested in that first romance and it's not the final one. So she does obviously enter into a relationship with the older brother, and she sort of has to deal with the fact that this guy that she's heard terrible things about is actually a guy that she has, really developed feelings for. My issue with the story is my second hero, shall we say, is a gynecologist, and there is a gynecological exam scene where our heroine gets extremely aroused and our hero is trying to be professional the entire time. It felt creepy. It felt weird. It felt like something I didn't want to read, but the romance wasn't terrible. I'm gonna put it in C tier. This wasn't terrible. I think this is very much a written for TikTok kind of book. Moving on. The Savage by Sophie Lark. This was my least favorite one in the series. This one follows a hero and heroine outside of this kind of school setting. I don't know if I said that when I talked about The Spy, but this is a book set at a kind of Hogwarts for the Mafia kind of school. This book takes some of the characters from the initial series and feels more like a standalone because it's not set at that school. I just didn't really like our hero and heroine. I felt like they were really not compatible, which was my biggest thing, and it feels weird to read a romance where you feel like there is no compatibility whatsoever. Sometimes I'm like, I don't really know why you should be together. Sometimes, very rarely, I'll read a book where I'm like, there's no compatibility here. I didn't feel attached to the romance. I'm gonna have to put this in D tier. I feel bad doing it, but it just wasn't my favorite, and I feel like this one I liked less than The Spy, so it feels appropriate to put it here. I'm gonna leave it at that, okay? Alright, next up, Baby for the Boss Hole by Nadia Lee. I read this for a KU video. I want to say this is one that was ranked really highly in KU bestsellers, and so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a try. I remember very little of this book. I checked on Goodreads, and I think I gave this book 3 stars when I first read it. It wasn't terrible, for sure, but it's so fucking painfully forgettable that I think I'm just gonna have to put it at C tier. It's a book about a woman who gets pregnant with her boss's baby, and I think he tries to be there for her and tries to step up and be a good guy, so it's not hateable for sure, but just I fucking barely remember it, so we're just gonna keep it in C tier, okay? Praise by Sarah Kate. The series. It was sort of a mixed bag for me though. You know what? Why don't I just pull up all of the books, because I read all of them. Alright, I've got them in publishing order. This is a series about a group of people who end up opening a sex club together, a bunch of friends, and it is each founder's romance, okay? Praise is our hero's romance. He has a bit of a praise kink. He kind of has a dom-sub relationship with his son's ex-girlfriend. I love a good age gap romance. I love the concept of it, but I have found, personally, I don't have a praise kink, and that is what this book is really about. I think it's sort of a universal theme in this series. If you do not enjoy or actively dislike a trope or a kink, you're probably not going to enjoy the book, because these are very kink focused, and that's understandable. They're also, I would say, pretty smutty, though they do have an emotional thread in them. So solid all around. I didn't hate any of these books. Praise I didn't like because I don't have a praise kink. Also felt like our heroine was just a little bit immature and a little bit irritating. I just don't really like insecurity in heroines. That's definitely a personal thing. I'm not saying it never works for me, but I just like really strong women who feel confident in themselves. I don't know. It wasn't terrible. I think I'm gonna have to put it C tier. It was fine. This was a 3-star read for me. I think C tier for me really is a 3-star read. These B tier books are 3.5 stars, A tier 4-star, S tier 5-star, D tier 2-star. Yeah, I feel like that checks out, okay? So we're gonna keep Praise at C tier. Eyes on Me, I really, really enjoyed. This was a kind of voyeur romance between our hero and his stepsister. Yeah, it's an oh no stepbro kind of romance. If you do not like that, you will not enjoy this book. I liked it, okay? I'm gonna put this at A tier. Is that scandalous? Ooh, is it A tier? I don't know. Fuck. I think I rated this 4 stars, so I'm gonna put it at A tier, which is also where I'm gonna put Give Me More. This is a polyamorous story, kind of a cucky sort of romance. Hero and heroine are married, and then they bring their best friend into their relationship in a sexual way at first and then romantic way later. I liked it a lot. I felt like the characters were really compatible. I think the rep was pretty decent. I think this book is definitely the most controversial of all of them, because everybody has their own opinions on what a good polyamorous romance looks like and also what good bisexual representation looks like. As a bisexual woman myself, I didn't think the bisexual rep was terrible, but everybody's welcome to their own opinion. I'm putting this at A tier. I genuinely really enjoyed this book. Sadly, I didn't enjoy Mercy. I felt pretty similar about Mercy as I did to Praise. It did contain some of the same characters, so that's not surprising. So the ex-boyfriend in Praise is the hero in Mercy, and he ends up in a age gap relationship with one of the founders of the company. I think he's in his early to mid-20s and she's in her like mid-30s. I didn't like this one again because we have that deeply insecure heroine. She's supposed to be a dom and yet she kind of doesn't like herself at all. She talks about how she is this like old maid, ugly, saggy boobs, like just gross. She describes herself as gross woman. And I'm like, I'm not saying you can't be gross at any age. I am saying, however, that I don't think the age is really what is causing you to be gross. And it just felt like she really was ageist towards herself. I just didn't like that. It was really pervasive in this story. So I think I'm gonna put this at C tier as well. Like, it was just not my cup of tea, and that's fine. I think 2 A tier books and 2 C tier books, like, you know, fine. I read Royally Not Ready for a Patreon exclusive reading vlog. It was supposed to be like a monthly book club pick for my patrons. I am glad that we didn't end up doing a live show on this because it was fucking ridiculous. This story is about our main character, Lily. I don't know how I remember that, but I'm pretty sure her name's Lily. She is the heir to the throne of some random little like Genovia Scandinavian country. The hero is the advisor to the king. He's supposed to like teach our heroine the ropes and make sure that she is set to take the crown in a good way, I guess. She owns a bikini bus in Florida prior to being taken to Genovia. You know, doesn't make her exactly a classy lady. What also doesn't make her a classy lady is the way that she behaves towards our hero. I didn't like her sexual advances. She talks about how she uses him for like masturbation material, and I'm like, you barely know this man. Why the fuck would you say that to someone's face when they have shown no sexual interest in you? Didn't like that. I think I generously rated this book 3 stars. It's definitely a 2-star read though. Like, this was just not straight up not good. And I like Megan Quinn's writing. This was a weird one. Also, it went from like weirdly comedic in the first half and then like kind of emotional in the second half. It just didn't feel right. No. Undertow by Elizabeth O'Rourke. I cannot remember if this is her first or second book. I think it might be her second book. This one I really wanted to like because it does have tropes that I enjoy. It is a childhood friends to lovers story. It's kind of forbidden, but I just feel like some of the themes explored in this book were not explored in ways that I really enjoy. There's a lot of privilege surrounding our heroine. She is, I don't know, like a wealthy Southern woman, wealthy daughter of really wealthy people, and she goes to her family's beach house every summer where she develops a relationship with this like townie, I guess you could say, from a really young age, but no one wants her to really associate with this guy because he's not a rich Southern man. And being from the South, I wouldn't say that I didn't recognize the things that were happening in this book as things that could be real. I do think the way that things were handled weren't great. I'm glad that our heroine eventually got away from her family. That was really nice, but I just wanted there to be more pushback on some of the kind of more negative things that happened in this story. And I also feel like the misunderstanding between hero and heroine went on a little too long and was just a little too obvious for me. I wanted there to be something a little different here. I feel like Elizabeth O'Rourke tends to make her conflicts pretty original, and I feel like, oh, okay, that could really happen. Not these like contrived third act conflicts. This one felt a little contrived for me. I think I ultimately liked this one less than Drowning Aaron. I think this is probably my least favorite Elizabeth O'Rourke book. I'm gonna leave this as C tier. All right, next up we have The Rebel by Sophie Lark. I think we also have The Bully still left in this series. So let's just talk about these at the same time. The Rebel was book 2. The Bully, I believe, is book 3. The Rebel I remember absolutely nothing about. I went on Goodreads to kind of jog my memory on the synopsis of this story. Still don't fucking remember what this book is about. It definitely is better than the first book in the series. I think it's definitely better than The Spy, but I don't think it's anything necessarily to write home about. I'm gonna put it at B tier. I feel like that's sort of generous for a book that I can't remember, but I just feel like it follows that this one should be. No, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm gonna put this at C tier. Like, I can't remember it, right? And I just don't feel like it's fair to put a book that I can't remember any higher than C tier. We're just gonna leave it there. The Bully, on the other hand, I really enjoyed. This one I think I gave 4 stars to. Was it the most deeply romantic story in the world? No. I don't think Sophie Lark writes the most deeply romantic stories. I think she writes pretty solid romances with a lot of like really good steam, and that's much appreciated. I think her writing style and her plots are usually pretty good as well. It doesn't feel like they're like overly smutty with no emphasis on plot. I did really enjoy the character dynamics in The Bully, so yeah, I don't know. It's right up there in A tier for me. This was just like a really fun read. If you could only read one book in the series, obviously pick up The Bully. I think you would be safe reading that one without having read the first couple of books in the series. But you won't appreciate the character progression of our hero quite as much because he's kind of despicable, I would say, in the first 2 books. But yeah, I don't know. I did ultimately like this book. Also, I just had like a brain blast moment where I actually did remember some of the plot of The Rebel. The Rebel actually follows the older sister of the heroine in The Bully. Okay, the plot does actually get good in The Rebel. I'm gonna move it to B tier. Okay, I'm gonna move it to B tier. I do vaguely remember some of the plot, and I don't know, I'm trying to like stick with my star rating tier ranking thing, so we're gonna go B tier. Next up we have Rejected Me by Casey Wells. This one I read for a reading your favorite Kindle Unlimited Romances video, and I'm kind of scratching my head because I feel like I saw this book everywhere. I feel like I saw so many many people hype it up, and I don't get it. This is a shifter romance between our hero, who's like the pack leader, and our heroine is a rejected mate of this guy. She feels the mating bond. He apparently doesn't feel the mating bond. She is seen as weak and lesser because she can't shift into a wolf form. I just felt like our heroine got shit on a few too many times for me. I do think our hero eventually comes around and becomes a really like doting partner, but he is not that for most of the book, so it kind of made this an unenjoyable read. I'm just gonna throw this in C tier. Like, I don't want to think about this book anymore. It's forgettable. I think this might be the most ridiculous book that I've read all year. No, actually, that's probably gonna be The Stone Lover. My Stone Lover, we'll talk about that later. A Baby for the Boss by Jessica Kane is about our heroine who is the heiress to a Spirit Halloween type of business. Doesn't feel like anyone likes her because she's too smart. No one likes her big brain, right? But she wants a baby because she thinks a baby will have that unconditional love for her, and who better to give her a baby than the buff worker in one of her warehouses that she comes across. He is more than happy to oblige because he's like, she's fucking sexy and just doesn't know she's sexy, and I'm gonna be the one to deflower this bitch. He does, in pretty interesting fashion. There is a sex scene that takes place on a toilet, which, you know, points for originality. I don't know how to rank smut, to be honest. It's tough for me because this was hilarious. It was so fun to read. Is this anywhere near the quality of any of these other books? No. This was like 70 pages of just banging. But did I have a good time with it? I absolutely did. I'm gonna put this in B tier. You know, like, I don't rate smut, you know, on Goodreads. Like, I don't have a star rating for this book. But did I enjoy this more than most of this shit down here in C tier? Yeah. Inked in Lies by Jonah Darling. I finished this last week for a weekly reading vlog. This one is a bummer for me. I don't like unrequited love if the heroine's the one that has the unrequited love. Mutual pining, I heavily fuck with. I don't fuck with the heroine, like, pining after a man who repeatedly sleeps with other women and doesn't recognize you as a viable sexual partner. I just felt like the plot here was a little bit silly as well. I don't think the plot is like totally running away from the series, but I do feel like this one didn't really progress the series forward very much, and it felt like our heroine was a little bit too much of a damsel in distress. I don't know, it's just like, it was an average read for me. I definitely didn't like this as much as Good Gone Bad. I feel like this was, yeah, about the same level as After the Fall. We're just gonna put it here, okay? I still have one more book in the series to go before, not before the series is done, but before like the next book gets published, which we don't know when that's going to be, but I'll read that at some point, maybe this year, but it'll be on Patreon. Flawless by Elsie Silver. I figured out that I really fuck with Elsie Silver. I'm gonna grab all 3 of her books that I've read this year and put them next to each other so I can kind of tell you the differences and the similarities and what I really like. Okay. I would say Elsie Silver is a new discovery for me, on par for sure with Elizabeth O'Rourke. Elizabeth O'Rourke is a new favorite author. I think Elsie Silver is as well. Elsie Silver definitely focuses on, I would say, I don't want to say smut, right? Like, she definitely writes emotional romances as well. Same with Elizabeth O'Rourke. She pretty much exclusively, I would say, writes small town romances. All of these are kind of interwoven books. These 2 are in a series. This one, A Photo Finish, is a different series, but like, I think the heroine is the sister of some of the brothers in these books. I'm not sure. Okay, anyway. Small town romance is set in Canada. Heroes who are usually kind of like gruff and grumpy, with heroines who are really strong and have a lot of sass. It's gonna get me every fucking time, okay? I really liked these. A Photo Finish is my favorite, I believe, of all of them. Then I would put Heartless. Then I would put Flawless. A Photo Finish is about our damaged hero who doesn't really believe that he is worthy of love. He's hiding a lot from his family, and he is kind of forced into this forced proximity situation with our heroine, who is the jockey at the family ranch. This was really good, all right? It was really sexy, really smutty. One of my all-time favorite romances. One of my favorite romances of the year. We're putting this shit at S tier, right? This is like so good. I think if you need to read one book from Elsie Silver, it's this one. Heartless is very similar in that way. This is an age gap romance. We have our heroine who is the nanny for our hero's child. He's like a 5-year-old boy named Luke. This is also just this is an S tier book. I'm sorry, it's so good. And the reason it's S tier is because I want a man. I have a man, but I would like a man who wants to provide for me. Wants to say, hey, you know what? I know that you're kind of lost, and I know you don't really know what you're doing with your career, but guess what? I'm gonna hold shit down, I'm gonna make all the money, and you can do whatever you want. You can go to school, you can bartend, you can just take care of our babies, you can do whatever the fuck you want, and I'm gonna provide for you financially. Ooh, sexy. All right, that's S tier material right there. Flawless was a book that I really enjoyed. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like this one was just lacking a touch in the romance department, and I didn't love our hero. He was a touch immature. He is a rodeo star, and our heroine is in charge of PR for him. After he gets himself in some kind of hot water, it was fine. Just not my favorite. We're gonna put this in A tier because it was really solidly written and just a fun time. What should we talk about next? How about One Bossy Proposal by Nicole Snow? This one, I'm gonna be honest, I don't fucking remember even a little bit. Please hold while I look at my Goodreads review. Didn't like this. Yeah, I didn't like this. This was for one of those KU videos. I think this was one, it wasn't your favorite KU romances, it was like top 10 best-selling KU romances. One Bossy Proposal is about our heroine who goes to work for this man, and he's a dick. her is pretty much the long and short of it. And I think there's a secret baby or accidental pregnancy or something. Didn't like this. Didn't think it was very good. It wasn't the worst thing I'd read. I did give it 2 stars, so actually I'm gonna put it in D tier. Yeah, this is not on the same level as like the books in C tier, even a little bit. Stone Cold by Winter Renshaw. This was a surprising delight. I picked this up for a KU vlog. Didn't know anything about this book. This one is another ex-boyfriend's best friend romance. Sort of enemies to lovers. Our heroine is an author, I believe. This was just really good. I don't know. It was underrated. It was short. It was sweet. Gotta have to put that at A tier. I just didn't expect this one. I think a lot of the romances on this list y'all will recognize and probably have read yourself if you're like a big KU gal like me. Stone Cold I think is one that is underrated, so I'd recommend checking it out. A book I would not recommend checking out. Stay With Me by Nicole Fiorina. Wow, I didn't like this book. If I had a deeper tier, like an F tier, this would be F tier. I'm sorry. This was not good. Our heroine goes to the school for troubled children, and she meets a guy, and they enter into a sexual relationship. There was sexual assault on page that was done to our hero, and we're just supposed to ignore that happened. I didn't feel like the romance between hero and heroine was very good at all. I don't want to talk about this book. This sucked. This is D tier shit. One of the first KU books I read this year was Mate Her, which is an alien breeder romance. You know, I was trying to justify why I picked this shit up. I don't really know, to be honest. I was just looking for something a little different. I think I was in a slump, okay? This book's about our heroine who ends up getting saved from scary aliens by 3 hunky, like, demon-looking aliens. They're just, like, red-skinned, winged creatures. There's 3 of them. And they take her to their house. They protect her, want to have babies with her. And so they all take turns. But it's kind of sweet. I mean, it's honestly kind of sweet. It's definitely longer than a lot of smutty stories I've read. Didn't love this. It's kind of forgettable. Like, I don't really remember much. I think this one was less enjoyable than A Baby for the Boss, which feels weird to say because I think this one's probably written better and like is more of a romance than anything, but it's a C tier, but I mean, it's like, it's smut. Next up, let's talk about Parallel by Elizabeth O'Rourke. I obviously went on an Elizabeth O'Rourke journey this year. I've read almost all of her books, and eventually I would like to do kind of a guide to video for her because I just love her stories that much, okay? Parallel is a time travel romance set in the present day. It is really different than anything I've ever read before, I'll be honest. I don't really like time travel romances, but this one definitely took me by surprise. I really liked our hero and heroine. I like this idea of like feeling like you know someone that you've never met before. It's just an A-tier book for me. It's just a good time. I really liked this. I need to read the follow-up book, but if I don't, like, I wouldn't be upset either. That's why this isn't an S-tier book. I would have to feel like I need to read the sequel immediately for this to be S-tier. Morning Glory Milk and Farm. This one is a minotaur milking romance. In this world, there are a bunch of different like supernatural creatures or like mythical beings, and there's also humans. Minotaurs, I guess their milk is used to make human Viagra or something like that, and so we have people, sometimes women, sometimes men, to milk these minotaurs in a very professional setting, but our heroine ends up in a romantic relationship with one of her clients. The romance was sweet here. It was all of the lead up to that I didn't really like. I didn't like the servicing bits of it. Felt a little gross to me. Didn't really like the idea of milk. The cover of this book is foul. I really didn't like it, but it was sweet. It was ultimately sweet. I don't know why I'm doing this, to be honest. I mean, I do. I'm gonna put this in B tier. Like, as much as this was like a book not for me, I actually do think this one is a book that I enjoyed more than the books below it. It is a 3-star romance. I'm pretty sure I give this book 3 stars, but I feel like it's more 3.5 than it is 3. An author who's able to make me enjoy a book with a topic so disgusting, I think she deserves props for that. I'm gonna put it at B tier. Restore Me by J.L. Seekers. Okay. This one I was recommended by Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life. She didn't like recommend it necessarily to me directly, I don't believe. I just, you know, I take her recommendations as personal because I like to think we're friends. Restore Me was a book about our heroine and hero, as I say for all of these descriptions, huh? Our heroine's husband recently passed away. Recently, I mean 4 years ago, and she ends up in a romantic relationship with his best friend. And obviously it's sort of taboo, sort of forbidden. I didn't really feel that this was this deeply emotional story. I wanted it to be. It was, first of all, a little too long, and second of all, it was so smut heavy. And I think that's the issue with a lot of these books. It's like there's so much promise there in the premise, but it's just so hung up on the sex. And I liked that they connected through sex. I definitely understood that, but I wanted there to be more emotionally. The ending was really cute. I did enjoy this book. This, again, I think is a B-tier book in that I enjoyed it much more than the C-tier romances, but it is a 3-star. Like, it wasn't top tier for me. All right, next up we have Stolen Air by Sophie Lark. This is a book in her Brutal Birthright series. I believe all of the characters in this series are the parents to this series right here, or the parents to the kids in the spin-off series. This one is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Our heroine is a ballerina. She's also the daughter of a rival mafia boss, and our hero basically steals her and kidnaps her. Liked this. I thought this was a fun story. Is it the most remarkable romance I've ever read? Is this a book that I'm thinking about out often? No. It was a good time. I feel like this book set out to do something and it accomplished that thing. I liked that our hero, even though he was technically kidnapping our heroine, he was definitely respectful of like what she enjoyed. He got her leotard so she could like practice her ballet while she was kidnapped. I don't know, this one's a toughie for me. I feel like it sits somewhere between A and B tier. I think I'm gonna put it in B tier. Like, it was really good, but I just don't think it's quite on the level of The Bully for me, right? Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This is one that I finished yesterday, actually, and I really liked this. This is a like TikTok hyped romance, and I think a lot of my friends didn't end up liking this book, which I can understand. It's a new adult sports romance between a figure skater and a hockey player, and they have to like share a rink. They end up kind of doing each other's sports, or like he ends up helping her with her figure skating, and it was fun. I don't think this is, again, like the most deeply emotional story. It's definitely more smut heavy than it is emotional, but for a debut novel, I thought this was like pretty fun to read. I really appreciated the cast of side characters that I know a lot of people didn't enjoy. I think a lot of people think that this book had too many characters. It was hard to tell everybody apart, but I actually really enjoyed the side characters, and I think that was the standout moment of this book, and it makes me invested in reading more books in the series, and I probably will. So I'm gonna put this at B tier. Like, this was a solid, like, fun time. Definitely better than these C tier books, but I just don't think it quite reaches A tier level. Next up is Love Light Farms by B.K. Boris, and this is a friends to lovers small town romance set kind of around Christmas time. Our heroine finally starts realizing she has feelings for our hero, and they end up kind of like fake dating as a result of this like contest that our heroine entered. She owns a Christmas tree farm. So where to begin? The writing in this book I think is very standout. I don't think Love Light Farms is our first book. It might be though. I think that the smutty scenes in these books are stand out to me because they are just hot as hell, right? Like, there are not too many of them. The lead up is always there. The writing of the sex scenes is just so intimate. It's not about like, oh, his, you know, slammed into her. It's better written. I don't know. Not that I don't like that sometimes. Like, it depends on the story. I just feel like the sex scenes in this book are hot enough to make it a worthwhile read. Definitely feels a little bit more elevated than like most Hallmark kind of cheesy Christmas romances, but it's also, again, it's not like raunchy as hell. I'm gonna put this at S tier. I'm sorry. This is fucking great. It's one of my favorite romances of the year, right alongside In the Weeds. This is a, not spin-off book, but it's a book in the series. The hero in this story is I was gonna say farm technician. He's the farmer for the Christmas tree farm that our heroine owns in the last book, and it's his romance, or second chance romance, I guess you could say, with our heroine who he hooked up with like at a conference a couple of months ago. It was so good. It was so good. Very slice of life, very forced proximity. Yeah, good shit. Good shit all around. 5 stars. Definitely excited to put that on my bookshelves. As you can see, they're looking a little fallow behind us. False Voice by Penelope Douglas. This was really good. I really enjoyed this. I have not enjoyed Penelope's last few books. This is a spin-off of the Fallaway series. It follows the children of the Fallaway series parents. It is fun. It is fast-paced. There is a plot. It's not overly long. It's well edited. There's good smut. I liked the kind of role reversal, shall we say. We have like the good guy hero and the bad girl heroine from the wrong side of the tracks. It was just a fun time. I liked this book a lot. Excited to read more in this series. I do think the plot got a little convoluted at the end, but nothing, again, compared to some of like Penelope's most recent work, so I really liked this, okay? It was a good time. I'm gonna put this at A tier. Things we never got over. I'm gonna leave it right here for now, okay? This was not good, and I'm not understanding the hype for it. Genuinely, of all of the books on this list that other people enjoyed but I didn't enjoy, I'm like, okay, I get that. I understand. This one I don't fucking understand. I'm sorry. The writing is just so not good. Our heroine arrives at a small town to essentially like foster or become the guardian of her niece after her twin sister runs away. Her twin sister is kind of a shithead, in with the wrong crowds, just never been a very good person, and leaves her daughter to her twin. Our chick is trying to kind of like figure out her life as well. I think she was like engaged or something, and she's like running away. Falls into a relationship with the town grump, is grumpy for no fucking reason. Knox. Didn't like the sex scenes. They were corny. I definitely still have shit highlighted in my Kindle edition of this book that is like, what the fuck is this? I understand what this book was going for. Like, it was trying to be an emotional romance. It was trying to be something. It just didn't accomplish that. I'm putting this in D tier. I was really considering for a second putting it at C tier because, like, is this terrible? Is this the worst thing I've ever read? No, but it was a 2-star read for me, and I did not like it as much as any of these C tier books, even though I guess a lot of people would be like, what the fuck are you doing? I don't care. Fling by Adriana Lark. I really like Adriana Lark. I need to read more books by her. She, I think, is like on the same level as like Elsie Silver, Elizabeth O'Rourke. Maybe not quite there, but like definitely almost there. It's kind of friends to lovers, more like acquaintances to lovers, I would say. These people have known each other for quite a while. They don't like text each other super often, but our heroine got dumped, I want to say, by her fiance, or she dumped for her fiance, but she has this like all expenses paid vacation, honeymoon that she needs to go on. Her friends try to find her someone to go with her. There's like an application process. The guy that ends up getting selected is one of her friends, and they have this like steamy steamy time in paradise together, and then they try to make their relationship work outside of a honeymoon setting, and it was really sweet. It was really steamy, but it felt appropriately steamy given the context of the book. I don't think they have sex until the 50% mark. I don't know, it was a fucking good time. I'll put this A tier as well. It is definitely, I would say, the lightest hearted of all of the books on A tier. I feel like almost all of the A tier books are like kind of emotional, and like Fling is not that. I think sometimes you just need a fun escapist romance, and that doesn't mean that it can't be a 4-star book. Next up we have The Devil You Know and The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea. I think The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea came out first. Okay. This one, I think if you like Mariana Zapata, you will eat the shit up. It's so fucking superior to like just most romances out there. Our hero is the brother to a famous rock star, and our heroine is a singer as well, I believe. I think she mostly does pop stuff and doesn't really get to perform her own stuff. She has, I believe, an anxiety disorder that people, for some reason, like the way she behaves, they think she has a substance abuse problem, but it's really just her anxiety. And our hero's a doctor. He definitely has a stick up his ass for sure, but I loved watching this romance unfold. It is, again, a slow burn like Elizabeth O'Rourke's books always are. It's set mostly on this Hawaiian vacation that our heroine goes on with the hero's family. She's supposed to be there with her current boyfriend, but her boyfriend doesn't show up because he's a piece of shit. Okay, this shit was so good. I'm gonna put this at S tier. And then The Devil You Know. This one's tough for me because I really enjoyed the story. I think I gave it 5 stars. It's an enemies to lover story between our hero and our heroine, who are both attorneys. I think the reason I didn't love this one as much as the first 2 in the series is because I think I expected more from this relationship. It was kind of something that was teased in the last couple of books, and then I just feel like our hero wasn't the guy that I thought that he was in the previous books, which is not to say that I didn't like him, because I thought he was really, really delightful. But I just don't know if he is like on the same level as these 2 gentlemen right here. I think I'm gonna put this at A tier. Like, it was so fucking solid, so good, but I still just don't think it was as good as the first 2 books. Enemies Abroad by R.S. Gray. This is C tier. Okay, I just think R.S. Gray, she has a formula, she knows what the fuck she's doing. It's just not necessarily something that I love. It was a very low angst, low tension story between 2 teachers who work at the same school. A school trip to Italy. They have to take all of their students with them, and then they, you know, kind of fall for each other. It was fine. Like, it just wasn't anything special. It wasn't anything that I think that you need to go out and pick up. I think if you really like low angst, low tension stories, R.S. Gray is going to do it for you, but I like angst and tension. I eat that shit up. Juniper Hill. This is my first Devney Perry book. I read this one for a small town Gilmore Girls romance video. Our heroine is a single mom. She is kind of in a tough place. She ends up becoming a maid at a hotel that our hero semi-owns. He is the chef at the hotel. His family owns the hotel. It was really sweet. I really liked how the hero stepped up and really wanted to be there for our heroine and her baby. It's not like the most remarkable book ever. Like, I don't have a ton to say about it, but I feel like it was a solid read, and it is an A tier book. Like, it was definitely solid, and I want to read more from this author in the future. So, you know, good for her. Reminders of him. Okay. I don't want to talk about this book very much because I've already shit on this book enough. It was not very good. I feel like it was a squandered opportunity, a missed opportunity, shall we say, to really explore what it means to be released from prison as a woman. Wanted more from the story. I didn't really like the romantic relationship here. I didn't really like the emotional thread throughout this book with our heroine trying to get her kid back. I wanted to sympathize, but I didn't. I wanted it to be done differently. It was just not for me. Definitely, I think one of Colleen Hoover's weaker books. I know a lot of people love this shit, but it wasn't for me, and that is okay. I gave this book 2 stars, so it's in D tier. All right, we're getting to the end of the road, thank God, because this video is so goddamn long. I have to pee really bad, and my camera battery's already died once. So, Don't Kiss the Bride by Carrie and Cole is an age gap story about our heroine who is in high school. She's a senior in high school. She's looking to escape her hoarder situation. Her mom's a hoarder. Our hero's like, you can't live in these conditions. So he takes her in, and they enter into a romantic relationship after some time spent fighting their feelings for each other. And I wanted to like it, but I just didn't. It just was not great. I don't think the execution of the story was as good as a lot of Carrie and Cole's other taboo age gap romances. And I don't know where to put this one because it wasn't terrible. I actually don't know what I rated this. Let me look it up. According to Goodreads, I gave it 3 stars. So I'm gonna put it at C tier. It was fine. Let's talk about Twisted Hate and Twisted Lies in the same breath because they are in the same series, right? This is a pretty well-loved series by Anna Huang. Twisted Hate, I didn't enjoy in the slightest. I really feel like the relationship was pretty childish. I didn't like the banter between the hero and heroine. I gave this book 2 stars. Like, I'm gonna have to put it in D tier, which feels kind of mean because I think I liked it in some ways more than these other books, but I definitely didn't like it as much as the books in C tier, so I'm just gonna put it in D tier. Enemies to Lovers relationship. I feel like I don't really need to talk about these books, right? Like, you know. Do you know what these books are about? Twisted Lies is a billionaire romance. Forced proximity thing where a heroine has to live with our hero because her apartment got broken into. She's an influencer, blah, blah, blah. This is fine. I think I give this book 4 stars, but like looking at it in comparison to some of these other 4-star romances, I kind of feel like I am rethinking my thoughts on this book. I really kind of feel like this is more of a 3-star and I was just caught up in the moment. It was fine. Like, it definitely wasn't a bad book, but it wasn't anything that, like, I think about a lot or would necessarily want to revisit. A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor. If you like monster dickin', I think this is for you. It's a reverse harem with our heroine who ends up like having sex with a bunch of other creatures. I think this is set in like Victorian England. She's having sex with like Mr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, who turns into like a beast man. She has sex with a vampire. She has sex with like a ghost, and everybody loves her, and it's just a reverse harem good time. I just didn't really like this, to be honest. I'm gonna have to put this in D tier. Like, okay, sure, objectively wasn't bad, but I just feel like when I'm comparing it to C tier books, this is just not at that level because it's a book that I didn't personally like. Do I think this book is better than D tier in terms of writing? Sure, certainly. But this is about me, and I didn't like it that much, okay? I'm happy for everyone who did. It's not for me. What is for me is Party Favors by Erin McClellan. This is a book that I read on your recommendation. I also think read A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor on your recommendation. This one was a success for me. This is an A tier fucking book. This is a smutty KU story. I don't think it's like supposed to be a novella length book. I mean, it kind of is, I think. It had emotion to it, right? Two women, I don't remember exactly how they know each other, have this sort of like delightful little New Year's together. This is one that I just like don't have that much to say about, but it was smutty, and I think if you're looking for a good female, sexy, but like fun romance, pick this one up. I do think this one was more emotional than a lot of like smutty books that I read this year, so yeah. Good time. Also, a good time was The Risk by S.T. Abbey. I only read the first book, okay? I'll be honest. I didn't read all the Mindfuck books yet. I'm planning on it. I just haven't gotten there yet. Hero is an FBI agent. Heroine is a serial killer. She's killing bad men, and good for her. I think the thing here is, the reason this is not an S tier book is the romance wasn't really that great for me. I loved the story. It was definitely a page turner, but the romance just like wasn't amazing. My Stone Lover. I read a gargoyle romance because I saw someone on Goodreads read a gargoyle romance. I was curious. I wanted to know more. I don't really like monster romances. I don't really, I mean, you can see Lady of Rooksgrave Manor's right here. Hers right here. I'm just like, aliens, monsters, not totally my thing. My Stone Lover, I wanted it to be freaky deaky. I really did, because it's like, if you're gonna bang someone who's made of stone, I want it to be weird. And it just wasn't weird enough. So our hero is a gargoyle. He comes to life and he has sex with our heroine, who's just like really into the idea of having sex with the gargoyle. He's always like, oh, this is gonna hurt. This is, you're not prepared. You're not prepared for my stone dick. And she is prepared for it because it's the most vanilla fucking sex ever. I just feel like if you're gonna do it, go there. And this one didn't go there. So D tier. King of Wrath by Anna Huang. This is the first book in the, I don't remember the name of the series. It's not the Twisted series. It's her new one. This is another like billionaire kind of romance. Our hero is in a marriage to convenience fake relationship kind of situation with our heroine. Our heroine's like a party planner or something like that. It was fine. Like when I look at this and look at the other books that I've read this year, it is a 4-star read. Like it was solid, but I really feel like, again, on second breath, second glance, it just feels B tier to me. Like it does not feel like something that I'm gonna remember forever. I just feel like billionaire romances in general are just not really my thing. All right, our last 5 books. Let me pull out the one good book amongst the group. We have The Plan by Carlos Sorensen. This is a sports romance. Can't remember if it's football or hockey. I'm pretty sure it's football though. Our heroine is the owner of the football team's daughter, and he is a football player. I don't know if he's a quarterback or whatever, it doesn't really matter. I liked this romance. I feel like it was very well written. I feel like it was a good time. The only thing that makes this not a 5-star read for me is the fact that you had to know a lot about these characters going to this book that I just simply did not know. This is a spin-off series, I believe, of another Carlos Sorensen series. You have to expect that, especially with the KU romance, people are not necessarily going to read your books in order, nor are they going to read every book in the series. So you need to make it to where I understand the characters from the get-go, and I didn't with this book, which was a little disappointing because I did end up eventually really liking the hero and the heroine and their relationship together. I liked the side characters. I was a little confused at first, okay? And I also feel like the third act conflict was just a little bit, like, not my favorite. Not in a bad, like, not the worst thing I've ever read, for sure. Like, this is an A tier book. Solid 4-star read, but it needed a little workshopping for it to be an S tier. Books that are not going to be even close to fucking S tier. These 4 bad boys right here. First, let's talk about 3 Little Words by Megan Quinn. I don't know what it is about Megan Quinn. I have such mixed feelings about her books. Some of her like baseball romances I really enjoyed, but the books that I've read recently I've just really fucking hated. I think she's going too over the top with the humorous aspect of her stories, and I feel like the emotions are kind of on the wayside, right? So those 3 Little Words, I think this story is an accidental pregnancy romance, if I'm remembering correctly. Our heroine was fucking insufferable. Royally Not Ready I feel like is, you know, if we're really comparing these two, leagues better than this book. I just hated it, okay? I'm putting it here, D tier. I give it 2 stars. In hindsight, probably should have given it 1 star. Other books that I maybe could have given 1 star, just kidding. 2 stars? I don't know. I don't know what these fucking books are. Owned by a Sinner was a mafia romance that I really disliked. This was one of those Kindle bestsellers. This one I disliked actively because our heroine gets sexually assaulted a couple of times on page. We're just supposed to think that our hero is the cream of the crop because he doesn't do this to our heroine and ends up like saving her from these situations. My question is why the author thought this was appropriate. D tier. Shattered Altar by Nicole Fox. I remember liking this one a little bit, but not loving it. I want to say our heroine is like on a flight and she meets this guy and it's like a Mile High Club moment, and then he ends up like impregnating her or something and she gets like kidnapped by him. This was like, I don't remember shit about this book. I'm gonna put this in D tier. Like, I think I give this book 3 stars, whatever, but like I don't remember it, so we're putting it in D tier. Save the worst for last. You're so welcome. Okay, The Takeover by T.L. Swan. I have a whole vlog on this book, not an entire like dedicated reading vlog, but I talked about this one in, I think your favorite romances, KU romances video. I'll link that in the description because it's a banger. Also, the bestsellers one's kind of a banger as well. The Takeover was one that y'all liked and you said this was good, and I could not disagree fucking more. Like, this was atrocious. Our hero is the boss of the heroine, I want to say, maybe, or like he's trying to take over the heroine's company. Yeah, that her dead husband left behind. The sex scenes in this book were repulsive to me. The way that our hero talks about our heroine's like mom body and like, I love your rolls and I love your stretch marks. I'm not saying that a hero should not love these things about a woman. I think you should. You should love those things. I don't want to hear you talk about them like that while we're in the throes of fucking passion. I do not want you grabbing my stomach while we're having sex. D tier. I mean, honestly, I should leave it down here because this was atrocious. I gave this book 1 star, and I don't really give 1 stars because it's not necessarily that I'm generous. Most books don't piss me off that bad, but this one did. Comfortable with these tier rankings. Like, just looking at this, I feel like it feels right, and I think it adequately really displays how I'm feeling about KU romances. I feel like I had a really good time this year in general. Yes, there were a lot of duds, but I do feel like I found some new all-time favorites. Like, look at my S and A tiers. I feel like these are more jam-packed than last year. In fact, like, let's look at last year's tier ranking. Yeah, I did not have as many S and A tiers last year. Granted, I read fewer books, but I am kind of astounded at how many more bangers that I had this year, and I'm so happy about that. It's rare for me to have a good time, but I had a good time this year, and I hope that you've had a good time watching my KU content this year as well. Still kind of toying with what I want to do next year in terms of KU content and how much I want to crank out. Let me know in the comments like what you're looking for when it comes to KU. Do you think that I'm posting enough KU content? My goal I think this year was to do 1 or 2 KU videos a month. I feel like I stuck to that pretty well. Next year, I'm kind of toying with like if I want to post 2 or 3 times a week. I think if I do decide to post 3 times a week, that it's going to be like weekly reading vlog every week, KU reading vlog every week, and then like a special video on Sundays. Don't know if I'm going to do that for sure or not. It's something I'm toying with. If I don't, there's just going to be a shitload more KU content on Patreon as well, probably. I mean, things aren't really going to change too much here on my channel, but something I've been thinking about. So thanks for watching this. Hope you liked it. Hope you found some new romances to love. Going to leave in the description a link to all of my S tier romances if you would like to add them to your TBR. If you want to check them out on Kindle Unlimited, feel free. It helps me out a little bit because I get a little bit of commish. But thanks so much for watching this video. I love y'all so much, and until next time.